This is Copilot CLI, and this is a web view, which the agent can use to display architecture diagrams, its own progress, or the internal state of your application. Showing custom UI is not a built-in feature of the CLI, but it doesn't need to be. Copilot can modify itself to add new features. I'm Steve, a developer on the GitHub Copilot team, and in this video I'll show you how I extended the CLI with custom user interfaces. But more importantly, I'm going to give you a plugin that will allow you to do the same thing yourself easily and reliably. But first, how is it even possible for Copilot to modify itself to add custom features? Okay, so I don't know if you know this, but there are various experimental features inside Copilot CLI, and you can find them if you go to experimental and then turn that on. Now I've already got them on, so if I go into this list, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that's available experimentally. And the one that I'm interested in right now is this one, extensions, which allows the agent to program itself using its own SDK to add new features. So as an example, I'm going to tell Copilot to do something that it actually can't do right now. Remind me in an hour to check if my PR was merged. Now, there is no reminder feature inside Copilot CLI, so it's not going to do that. It says I don't have the ability to set reminders. Okay, fine. But what if that's not good enough? What if I actually do want it to have this feature? Well, I can tell it to add that feature to itself. Create a new Copilot CLI extension called Reminder, which has a custom tool, Set Reminder, that takes in a time and a message, and then you can use a set timeout call to log the message at the right time. Let's see what it comes up with. It is writing some code for itself right now. And if I go over to my editor, I can actually see the code that it's just written. You can see that it's using Copilot SDK, so it knows how to program itself using its own SDK. It's got a tool that it's just created there called Set Reminder, which takes in time and message, and they're both required. And then the handler for that tool is going to use Set Timeout and then log stuff at the right time. Now, this kind of tool here is one that the agent can call whenever it wants as part of its workflow. So I'll just tell it to do so. It calls the set reminder tool, and then the agent becomes idle, it's finished, it's not doing anything anymore. But after a few more seconds, hopefully, there we go, our reminder comes through. All right, great. So this kind of tool is one that the agent can choose to invoke as part of its workflow. But sometimes you might want to add things that you, the human operator, can invoke. So let's try and do that. Extend the extension with a new custom command called remind, which also takes time and message, and then it can just set the reminder deterministically. Right, now let's watch it edit this code. Currently we've just got tools with set reminder. And now you can see it's also added a command called remind, and that's going to be /remind, and then it's got an implementation for that alongside the set reminder tool. Okay, let's try that. Remind, there we go, that's the usage. Remind, 4 seconds, reminders are fun. And after 4 seconds, we get our reminder. Well, that's the basics of extensions, but it was all just inside the terminal window. What if you want to display complex diagrams and interactive UI or whatever custom dev tooling you can think of? Well, let's take this to the next level by letting the agent open its own UI windows. Right, so this is going to be a harder challenge for it, but let's give it a go. Create me a Copilot CLI extension called WebView that lets the agent open a browser window and display arbitrary HTML in it. Okay, so it's starting to produce quite a lot of code. Let's go and have a look at what it's come up with. That's all this stuff that's appearing in here. Oh, it tells me that it's already opened the web view. And if I have a look, oh, I can see here's my little web view pane off to the side there. Okay, now let's just check if that can update the content in there. Actually change the content to be a live clock that updates continually. All right, so it's done that. It's created a nice little clock for us. Brilliant. Right, so the common use cases for this would be something like displaying arbitrary visualizations of, say, the architecture of your application or of a pull request that you're trying to review, or displaying some kind of live status of the internals of your application. So as an example of that, since I work on Copilot CLI, I'm going to view the internals. Now change it to display a live view of all events within my Copilot session. Okay, reopen the web view. All right, let's just make that big enough to see. And as you can see, we are now getting a live view of all the session events that are happening inside Copilot CLI, so we can really keep track of what's going on there. Now, I don't think you probably want to see the insides of Copilot CLI. You can if you want to. It's more likely you want to visualize what's going on in your own application. Now, if you're like me, you might be thinking, okay, Steve, I get that theoretically this is possible, but does it actually work reliably in practice, or are you just lying to us by cherry-picking examples? Well, the truth is, for relatively simple cases like just displaying some static HTML, it does pretty much always just one-shot it and get it to work first time. But for complex cases with dynamic content, events flowing in and out, installing custom NPM packages, there are so many ways that it can be achieved technically, the agent doesn't necessarily pick the optimal approach first time, and it might go around in circles trying out a few different techniques. But that's okay, because we can teach the agent to be an expert at creating custom UI in web views. And to do that, I've written it up as a skill, and I've put it into a plugin that you can install for yourself. So here's the plugin that teaches Copilot how to build much more sophisticated web views, including ones with bidirectional interactions. And you can install that by following the steps that are given here, plugin install, and then the path to this repo. So over here in Copilot, I'm going to paste that in and tell it to install that. And it has done. And now I can run the Copilot Web View Creator skill and then make a web view that, and then whatever it is that I want it to do. So as an example of an interactive web view, I used this earlier on to make a web view that visualizes the tasks that the agent is going through while it works on a bigger piece of work. I'll start by creating some sample data as if I was working on something for real. Right, so you've got a system of keeping track of to-dos while you're working, right? Assuming that's true, create a sample set of data as if we were working on an e-commerce application. Okay, so it's created a bunch of to-dos with dependencies between them, and the web view that I created earlier using this plugin should help us to visualize that while it's working. So I should be able to go to the to-do viewer that I made earlier, and you'll see now it creates this beautiful diagram of all the work that it's doing and the dependencies between them, and this will update in real time as it's working, but also it's interactive, so I can click on one of these and say something like, will this be hard to do? And you can see that it's added that message into my session here, and the agent will reply to that. It comes up with a completely ridiculous estimate here, 3 to 5 days. I would think 3 to 5 minutes probably, given that we're using this coding agent. And it will update in the diagram as things change. So for example, if I click on this and say mark as done, normally you wouldn't tell it to mark things as done. It would just do that automatically while it's working. But in this case, for the demo, I'll tell it, and you can see that now pops up in green. Once again, this isn't limited to just displaying the internal states of Copilot. You can use this technique to create whatever kind of custom developer tooling is helpful for you. You could have a canvas that can show architecture diagrams. You can have a dashboard that shows what your app is doing, does deployments, monitors issues, launches agents to handle things. You could create whatever kind of productivity system is relevant for you. It can have tools that the agent can choose to invoke, or it can have deterministic commands that you can trigger through the CLI or by clicking in your own custom UI. So let me know what you're thinking, and if you can, give it a go.